not knowing if I was going to be able to have my own biological child, I started crying in the lobby of the building. He sort of just like held me in his whole body and just calmed me down and just reminded me it was going to be okay. It was so beautiful, and it gave me such confidence to go upstairs. Hi, my name is Kristina. This is my partner, Lorenzo. We're both teachers. We live in New York City, and we are about a year and a half into our family building journey. We kind of always had a little bit of a crush on each other. We worked together for a while at a school, and then I left the school to work somewhere else, and we hadn't seen each other in a few years.
Yeah.
And then we ran into each other at a Dunkin' Donuts.
Hey, how you doing? You should catch up, you know.
And I think we both immediately felt that the spark was still there, and he asked me out on a date. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was younger. Unfortunately, the only medications that do control my seizures are not safe for carrying your own child. And then I also have endometriosis, fibroids, polyps, and a blood condition called thalassemia. And the endometriosis actually led to me having a pretty serious iron deficiency anemia that right now is only kept at bay with an IUD. So they sort of all work against each other. So when we went into the process of thinking of building a family, we had to consult my regular OBGYN, my neurologist, my hematologist, my primary care physician, and then a reproductive endocrinologist, whether it was adoption or IVF or possibly surrogacy.
I know it was hard for her to kind of come forward and tell me about it because there's a lot of stuff that I wasn't aware of. So it was like a very vulnerable state at that time. For me, it was having to understand that it was going to take a lot of support from my end.
Dr. Pisia, who's my neurologist, my epileptologist, did not know if my epilepsy meds affected my eggs. He could only speak on what they did to the fetus. Probably the most meaningful moment for me that day, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you, is I was so emotional going into my first appointment at Generation Next, not knowing if I was going to be able to have my own biological child. I started crying in the lobby of the building, and it was like my feet couldn't move anymore. I was shaking, I was crying, and he sort of just like held me in his whole body and just calmed me down and just reminded me it was going to be okay. There was nothing that they could say that would take something away from us. Even if we had to adopt, it was still going to be our baby. And it was so beautiful, and it gave me such confidence to go upstairs. And we went upstairs and we met with Dr. Haid, and he has such like a quirky, interesting, but awesome demeanor to him. Do you remember we sat down? I blurted out my whole story, everything that was wrong with me. I'm like shaking, holding his hand.
He's just sitting there listening, like okay.
Yeah, just like shaking his head. And then he kind of looks at us and he goes, "Okay, what's the big deal? Yeah, you're fine." I was like, "What? What?"
Yeah, meanwhile I'm sitting there, I'm like, see?
Yeah. The amount of relief was overwhelming for somebody who does not get much good news at doctors' offices. This was one of the biggest days of my life, for sure. Now we have two healthy embryos, and we will, and we will be pursuing surrogacy as per our doctor's suggestion.
So diving in, just seeing financially where we could support ourselves without outside support, if that was possible, was like our first step. Understanding that there were other options out there that we had at our disposal if we needed to have additional support. But definitely through all of that, still thinking, this is a lot of money. Like, this is a whole lot of money.
It's so much money. It's really hard to find people out there that are also doing it that feel like they're just kind of normal middle class people. It feels like a lot of people that are having successful, easy surrogacy journeys are all rich or celebrities. And I think that's why I also chose to be kind of vocal about my journey, is because I wanted to show other people that you can do it just as a normal middle class young couple. We're trying our best. Downsized in our apartment. We sold off all of our extra belongings that we didn't need. We are applying for grants. We have considered all of the loans we could take out. We are not having a wedding right now because the money that we would have put towards our wedding is going towards the baby. The money we were going to put towards a house is going to the baby.
Yeah.
So having a surrogacy journey, at least for us, equals a lot of sacrifice. Something specific that I had been searching for online were resources that were geared toward women of color and fertility issues. And I was having a lot of trouble finding them. And then Regina actually commented on one of my Instagram posts. And I immediately went to her page, to Broken Brown Egg on Instagram, and was like, oh, I found it. Here it is. This is what I was looking for.
Applying for a grant is a whole nother thing in itself. It's all the way down to all your financial accounts. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Like, oh, a grant, like it's just submit my name and, where I live.
And my story.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that.
She emailed me and she said, Kristina, do you have any time this evening to hop on a quick Zoom? We have some additional questions as we go into final deliberations about the grant. And I was like, of course. I didn't even know I was still in the running. So I hopped on the Zoom that night as soon as I got home from teaching. And she was just like, you got it. And then I cried. If you can't tell, I'm a crier. The AHA grant is a grant that is given to BIPOC families who are struggling with infertility. It could be used for IVF medical expenses, adoption services, now surrogacy services, which is great, and really any sort of like medical expenses that you were not prepared for in your family building journey, because so many pop up that you did not expect, as we have learned in the last year and a half.
Yeah, there's a lot of medical expenses that you don't realize until you start breaking down the numbers. And it's going to allow us, hopefully, to be able to pay for a lot of the medical expenses for the surrogate, because we're responsible for those as we're going through that process. So the visits to the fertility clinic, doctor checkups, medications that she's going to need to take in order to prepare for implantation.
And the actual transfer of the embryo, which is the most important part.
We're in the talks with someone now about possible surrogacy, but it's in the really early stages.
I feel like sometimes this is the hardest part to navigate, especially with friends and family. The surrogacy process is so long, and it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Someone who loves children, someone who is thoughtful, someone who's caring, someone who understands the significance of children. That's definitely something that we're looking for.
I think I'm going to be one of those people who just knows when I meet the person. I think it's going to be a lot of intangibles. They say you have to be willing to trust this person to, babysit the most important thing that you've ever created for 9 months. So definitely someone that we feel like we can trust.
I've called her sometimes champ, because she is a champion for this, and I think as we've gone through the process, she's felt even more compelled to be a champion for others who've gone through this process. But she is very open about it. She's been very honest about her feelings with it. And she's been patient with me as I go through this process with her, because you have to remove your ego from a lot of this stuff as well. If you don't understand something, being honest about and open about that. So she's been a great example around that. If you don't understand something, figure it out. You have just been consistent through all of this.
I don't think there could be a more supportive partner. I'm gonna throw some fun little things out there for the camera, but from playing the Rocky music to get me out of the bedroom when I was crying for my first shot during IVF, to literally sleeping at my bedside when I was in the hospital for 3 days straight. Like, you're everything. Like, there has not been a single time you have not been there. Like, you're such a rock. And I know that I get overwhelmed a lot because I want this baby right now. And but the great part about you is that you calm me down, and I am so confident that we will have this baby one day that it makes me able to stay the course. We are so lucky to be the recipients of the grant.
Yes.
If you did not get to apply this year, please apply next year, because it is a game changer. If you're doing surrogacy like us, I know that the grand total is so big, and $150,000 is a lot, which is a normal surrogacy journey. But when you break it down into what 10 grand can pay for, it can pay for your lawyer fees, or it can pay for the medical expenses at a clinic, or it can pay to open your escrow account, something like that. So it can make a very big difference.